She hit me. My own daughter raised her hand and struck me across the face. And I stayed quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even say her name. I just stood there, with the taste of blood in my mouth and the kind of silence that grows in a house where love has been dying for a long time. The next morning, I cooked her breakfast. A full plate, eggs, toast, tea, the same way she used to like it when she was little. She looked at it, then at me, and smirked as if nothing in the world was wrong. Finally listening, she said. But that smile didn't last long, because when she stepped into the dining room, she froze. Her eyes widened. Her voice died in her throat. She saw who was sitting in her chair, and everything she thought she controlled crumbled in that single moment. I'm glad you're here. I really am. Because this story, my story, is not easy to tell. I've held it inside my chest for months, maybe years, not knowing if saying it out loud would break me or free me. Thank you for listening to my story. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. Sometimes I think I'm talking to you because you're the only one who will listen without judgment. Or maybe because I just want someone to know that I wasn't always the kind of mother who stayed silent. I wasn't always the kind of woman who let her daughter hit her. There was a time when our home felt soft, warm, safe. A time when I believed that the bond between a mother and daughter was unbreakable. A time when her laughter filled every corner of this house, bouncing off the walls like sunlight. If I close my eyes, I can still hear it. Her tiny feet running down the hallway. Her voice calling Mama. The way she used to hug me with her whole body, as if letting go meant losing the world. But life isn't a straight line. It bends, twists, sometimes snaps. And love, especially the kind you pour endlessly into your children, can turn into something else when you're not looking. Something sharp, something cold, something that hurts you quietly before it hurts you loudly. And the loud part, well, that came the night she hit me. It's strange how the human mind works. You'd think the moment she slapped me would be the memory burned into my soul. But no. What I remember most is the moment before she did it. She stood in front of me, breathing hard. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were empty, so empty it frightened me more than her anger could. I had seen my daughter angry before. But this wasn't anger. This was entitlement. A belief that she had the right to do what she did. A belief that I, her mother, owed her something I didn't even know she wanted. And then her hand flew. The crack echoed in the living room. A soft, cruel sound against my skin. I felt heat spread across my cheek. I felt my heart sink to the floor. But I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I swallowed everything. My pain, my pride, my voice. And silence wrapped around me like a second skin. You might think I should have yelled, or slapped her back, or walked out of the house that very night. But motherhood doesn't come with simple answers. Sometimes we choose silence not because we are weak, but because we are trying to understand where everything went wrong. After she hit me, she walked away as if she had just closed a door that would never open again. No apology, no hesitation, nothing. But I remember something else too. A flicker, a momentary tremble in her hand, a shadow of guilt she tried to hide. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell me that the girl I once knew wasn't entirely gone. I stayed awake that whole night, sitting in the kitchen, staring at the wall, listening to the refrigerator hum as if it were trying to comfort me. And somewhere between midnight and sunrise, a strange kind of clarity washed over me. Not anger, not revenge, not fear. Just understanding. I understood that my silence wasn't going to protect her anymore. It wasn't going to protect me either. And it definitely wasn't going to fix what was broken. But I also understood something else. If I reacted in anger, if I lashed out, if I punished her right away, it would only push her further away. Create another wall, another wound, another cycle. So I waited. And I cooked breakfast. Not because I wanted to reward her, not because I forgave her, but because I needed her to calm down. I needed her defenses to lower. I needed her to think she still had power. You can't break a chain unless the links are loose. when she smirked that morning, when she mocked me with that arrogant little line. Finally listening. I felt something inside me shift. Not in a dramatic, fiery way. Not in anger. Something quieter, colder, sharper. The kind of shift that happens when a mother finally realizes that the child she raised is no longer just lost, but dangerous. I took a deep breath. I told myself to stay calm, to wait just a little longer, because I knew what was coming next. And she didn't. She had no idea who was sitting in her chair. No idea what that person represented. No idea how much truth was about to slam into her life like a storm she never saw coming. As she lifted the fork from the table, ready to take the first bite, I watched her smile fade, not slowly, but instantly, like someone blowing out a candle. Her eyes locked onto the person across from her. Her entire body stiffened. Her chest rose, then fell. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. In that moment, she wasn't the girl who hit me. She wasn't the one with the smirk or the cruel words. She was a child again, scared, small, caught. And although we hadn't spoken a single word yet, she knew. She knew everything was about to change. You might think this is where the story truly begins. But no. This moment, this breakfast, this silence, this shock is just the surface. The real beginning is hidden deeper. In the days and nights that led us here. In the small lies, the strange behaviors, the growing distance, the tiny cracks in her voice, the time she avoided my eyes, the shadows in her room, the secrets she thought I didn't notice. Those little things, those quiet warnings, were where the truth first started to show. And if you stay with me, I'll tell you everything. Every detail, every ache, every realization I ignored until it was too late. Because before a daughter hits her mother, before she crosses that line, something inside her has already broken. And sometimes, the mother breaks right along with her. Before things fell apart, our home looked like any other ordinary home on a quiet street. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. Just a small, warm place where the curtains were always half open because my daughter loved sunlight, and where the living room smelled like jasmine tea because I always brewed some in the evenings. We weren't rich, but the house felt safe, like a blanket you wrap around yourself on nights when the world feels too big and too loud. Most mornings started the same way. I would wake up before her, pad quietly to the kitchen so I wouldn't disturb her sleep, and set water to boil. She always liked her tea a certain way, light, almost watery, with a single teaspoon of sugar. She used to joke that I made it wrong on purpose when she was a teenager, just so she'd come downstairs to correct me. Back then, those small arguments were funny. Now I look back at them and wonder if they were early signs of something deeper, a tone in her voice that was sharper than necessary, a look that lasted a second too long. But I didn't question anything. You don't question the things you love. My daughter, Elena, had always been the center of my world. When she was little, she used to follow me around the house, dragging a stuffed rabbit by its ear and asking me endless questions about everything. Why does the moon change shape? Why do flowers sleep at night? Why do people cry? To her, I was the encyclopedia of the universe, and to me, she was the reason I kept going. I raised her alone. Her father left when she was 6. He wasn't cruel or violent, just absent. A man who got tired of responsibilities and slipped out of our lives the way people slip out of a party they wish they never attended. She asked about him for a few years, then stopped. And for a long time, I thought that meant she was okay. Children have a strange way of turning their pain into silence that adults mistake for healing. Our life after he left became simple, quiet, predictable. I worked at a small clinic as a receptionist. Modest pay, long hours, but it felt like a place where I belonged. Every month, I would put aside a little money for Elena's school supplies, then later for her clothes, her college books, her birthday surprises. She never asked for much. She wasn't a spoiled child. At least, not then. Elena grew up to be independent, strong-willed, the kind of girl who didn't need anyone to tell her what to do. Teachers loved her confidence. Neighbors praised her manners. And I adored everything about her, even the parts that made motherhood difficult. There were evenings when we sat together on the couch, watching old movies she pretended not to like but quoted later. She'd place her head in my lap and ask me to braid her hair like I used to when she was little. She said it relaxed her. Those were the moments that made me believe everything was okay. That no matter how hard life had been, we had each other. I love that ritual. Her hair between my fingers, the quiet hum of the TV, the soft way she'd sigh when the braid tightened just right. It was our way of saying things we didn't say out loud. But life doesn't announce when it's about to shift. It doesn't warn you when the person you love starts changing. Sometimes the change is so slow you mistake it for growing up. The first signs were small. A door that shut too hard. A sentence that ended in a snap. A habit of avoiding my eyes during conversations. I told myself she was stressed. College was pressuring her. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was figuring out life. You don't jump to worst-case scenarios when the person changing is your own child. I remember one evening vividly, because now I realize it was a warning I ignored. We were sitting in the kitchen. I had made her favorite meal, the one she always asked for as a kid, boiled rice with lemon chicken. The smell filled the house, warm and comforting. But when she came home, she didn't smile. She didn't say her usual, "Smells good, Mama." She just walked past me, tossed her bag on the couch, and stayed at her phone. "Elena," I said softly, "dinner's ready." She didn't hear me, or pretended she didn't. Her eyes didn't move from the screen. "Elena," I repeated a little louder. She lifted her head slowly, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, and said, "I'm not hungry." No anger, no softness, just flatness, like a wall. I remember standing there, holding the spoon, feeling suddenly foolish, like a hostess whose dinner was rejected by her only guest. I should have asked what was wrong. I should have pushed, but something in her posture told me not to. So I nodded and quietly packed the food away. That night, as I washed the dishes, I heard her laughing on the phone, really laughing. Not the polite laugh she gave me sometimes, but a raw, genuine one. My heart twisted. How could she sound so distant with me, and so alive with someone else? But mothers don't admit jealousy. We pretend we're above it. We tell ourselves she's growing up. It's normal. It wasn't normal. I know that now. The distance between us didn't happen overnight. It stretched quietly, like a thin crack in a glass window, invisible until the light hits it just right. She stopped joining me for tea. Stopped asking me how my day was. Stopped telling me about hers. Every once in a while, she'd smile at me, but it felt less like warmth and more like habit. Still, I thought we were okay. Because every mother wants to believe that the love she poured into her child is enough to keep things from falling apart. The truth is, even the strongest love can't stop the wrong influences, or hidden anger, or loneliness your child never admitted to, or bitterness you didn't know she carried. One Saturday morning, months before the slap, I woke up early and walked past her room. The door was slightly open. She was sitting on her bed, looking at something on her phone. Her shoulders were tense. Her face was pale. "Elena," I whispered, "are you okay?" She jumped, like a child caught stealing. Then she glared at me, pure, sharp irritation. "Can you knock?" she snapped. My breath hitched. I wasn't used to that tone from her. "I'm sorry," I said gently. I just don't," she muttered and shut the door. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the wood panels. My heart felt unusually heavy, like it was trying to tell me something my mind didn't want to hear. But I smiled anyway, wiped my hands on my robe, and walked to the kitchen. Because when you've spent your whole life caring for someone, your heart learns how to hide its bruises. Weeks passed. The distance grew. She stopped coming home on time. She started snapping at small things, like a spoon in the wrong drawer, or a shirt not folded the way she liked. She wasn't violent. Not yet. Just cold. It was the coldness that hurt more than anything. A coldness that wrapped around her and seeped into the walls. Sometimes I caught her staring at me with an expression I couldn't decode. Something between resentment and confusion. I asked her once, "Is everything okay between us?" She shrugged and said, "I'm just tired." Mom. And I believed her. Because mothers always believe the version of reality that hurts the least. But underneath the routine of our days, something was shifting, changing shape, growing sharper. The house felt different. Not immediately, slowly, like someone turning down the warmth 1 degree at a time until you wake up one morning and realize you're freezing. I didn't know it then, but the slap wasn't the beginning. It was the result. Something had been building in her long before that night. Something she never said. Something I didn't see. Maybe I didn't want to see it. The last warning sign came 2 weeks before everything exploded. She came home late, very late, and went straight to her room. Her door remained locked for 2 days. She barely ate, barely spoke, barely existed in the same house as me. When she finally came downstairs, her eyes were swollen, her expression hollow. I opened my mouth to ask, "What's wrong?" But she gave me a look, a sharp, exhausted look that shut me up instantly. It was a look that said, "I don't want you involved." At the time, I stepped back. I thought I was respecting her space. Now I know I was stepping away from the edge of a cliff I didn't realize we were standing on. That was the moment the line between us shifted. I just didn't see the fault line forming. But it was there, and it was growing. The moment everything truly began, the moment the ground quietly shifted under my feet, was so small, so ordinary, that if I hadn't replayed it 100 times afterward, I might have forgotten it completely. It was a Tuesday evening, a quiet one, the kind where the house feels like it's holding its breath for no reason at all. I had just returned home from the clinic. The sky was dark already, even though it wasn't that late. Winter evenings have a way of making the world feel heavier, and that day, the weight felt doubled. I opened the door quietly, expecting the usual stillness, but the stillness that greeted me wasn't peaceful. It was tense, like the aftermath of an argument I hadn't heard. Elena's shoes were by the door, one tilted sideways, the other thrown farther than usual, not neatly placed like she used to do. Little things like that started becoming normal for her. I hung my coat, set down my purse, and called out, "Elena, I'm home." No answer. I walked into the living room and found her curled up on the far end of the couch, her knees pulled to her chest, her phone in her hand. Her eyes were swollen, not from crying, but from exhaustion. Her hair was messy, and her face carried that same withdrawn look I'd been seeing more and more. "Elena, sweetheart, are you okay?" I kept my voice soft, as if speaking loudly might break her. She jerked slightly, like she hadn't heard me come in. Then she pressed the phone against her chest and turned away. Fine. That one word carried more weight than any sentence could. I sat down beside her slowly, leaving a respectful distance, the way you do when you're not sure if the person next to you wants your presence or fears it. "You sure?" I asked again, gently. Her jaw tightened. She didn't look at me. Instead, she stood up abruptly and mumbled, "I have homework." She didn't. She hadn't done homework on a Tuesday in years. But I didn't call her out. I just let her walk away. That was the first small lie of the evening. Later that night, after she'd gone to her room, I was tidying up the living room when something caught my eye. Her phone charger was on the floor, but the phone, her precious phone she never let out of her sight, was nowhere to be found. Odd. She took her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, even when she was just grabbing a glass of water. Why leave it downstairs? I didn't plan to touch it. I wasn't that kind of mother. But I bent down to pick up the charger, and that's when I saw it. Her phone, wedged between the couch cushions, half hidden. The screen was still lit. A single message glowed in the dim room. Not the whole conversation, just a preview of one line. "So you're doing it tonight?" My heart tripped. Not in panic. Not yet. Just bewilderment. Doing what? Why tonight? My first thought was something innocent. Maybe it was about an assignment, or some club activity, or a plan with friends. But something about the wording felt wrong. Too urgent. Too secretive. Before I could stop myself, my hand reached toward the phone. Not to open it, just to turn off the screen. But the moment my fingertips brushed the surface, the phone vibrated. Another message flashed. Don't back out again. Again. My chest tightened, like someone had wrapped a cold hand around my ribs. Whatever she was planning, this wasn't the first time. I placed the phone carefully on the table. I didn't read more. I refused to cross that line. Mothers shouldn't invade their children's privacy, but there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. The house suddenly felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. I walked to her room and knocked lightly. Elena. Silence. I knocked again. Sweetheart, I found your phone. The door flew open. She snatched the phone so fast it startled me. Then she stared at me with an expression that didn't belong on her face, a suspicion so sharp it cut through the space between us. Why were you touching my stuff? She demanded. I wasn't, I said softly. It was on the couch. You should have left it there. Her voice cracked, not with emotion, but with something darker. Fear, guilt, anger, a mix of all three. Elena, I just wanted to make sure it didn't fall. I said leave it. Her tone was final, cold, unrecognizable. Before I could say anything, she shut the door in my face. Hard. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the wood, feeling something shift inside me. A small shift, barely noticeable, like the first tremor before an earthquake. That was my second small discovery of the night. Anger where there shouldn't have been anger. Later, I went to the kitchen to distract myself, to wash dishes I had already washed, to wipe counters that were already clean. My hands were busy, but my mind was racing. Who was she talking to? What was she supposed to do? And why did this feel like something she didn't want me to even breathe near? When I finished cleaning, I turned off the kitchen light and walked toward my room. As I passed her door, I heard something. Whispering. A voice so low it could barely be called a voice. I paused, instinctively holding my breath. Elena. I murmured softly. The whispering stopped instantly. Then, silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty, but full of something hidden. I don't know why, but in that moment, fear flickered inside me. A small fear. Quick, quiet, like the way a candle flame shivers when a window opens. I went into my room, shut the door, and leaned against it. For the first time, I felt like I didn't know my daughter. For the first time, I realized something was happening in her life that I wasn't a part of. I tried to sleep, but sleep avoided me. Every sound in the house felt louder. The pipes creaking, the wind brushing the windows, the faint vibration of her phone in the next room. And somewhere around 3 a.m., when the world was quiet enough for my thoughts to be loud, I remembered something. Her eyes. When she snatched the phone from me, I saw something in them. Not anger, not guilt, not even fear. Desperation. Like she was drowning in something she couldn't tell me about. Something she didn't want me to know. The next morning, she came downstairs as if nothing had happened. Her hair was brushed, her clothes neat, her face calm. Morning, she said, her tone flat. I smiled gently, pretending to match her calm. Morning. I wanted to ask her. I really did. But mothers learn to pick their moments carefully. And that moment wasn't the right one. Still, something small happened at breakfast. Something that should have told me the truth was closer than I thought. She set her phone beside her plate, screen down. Something she never did. As if she wanted to keep it within reach but out of my sight. Every few minutes, her fingers tapped the table, an anxious rhythm she tried to hide. Then, when her phone buzzed once, then twice, her shoulders tightened. She didn't check it. She didn't move. She just shut her eyes for a moment, a long, painful moment, and breathed out like somebody carrying a secret too heavy for her age. Elena. I whispered. She opened her eyes, but she didn't look at me. Mama, she said softly, please don't ask me anything today. My heart dropped. That was the moment, the subtle, soft warning sign, the one I should have listened to. Because her voice wasn't rude. It wasn't distant. It wasn't angry. It was tired, exhausted, scared. And now, looking back, I know that was the night she made her decision. The night she stepped onto a path that led to the moment she hit me. A path I didn't stop her from walking. because I didn't understand what she was trying to hide. The night I finally discovered the truth didn't explode into my life all at once. It seeped in, slow, cold, and merciless. Like water leaking under a door until your feet are already soaked before you realize the room is flooding. It started 3 days after the messages on her phone. Nothing dramatic happened at first. Elena was quieter than usual, moving around the house like a ghost who didn't want to disturb the walls. She barely touched her meals. She barely looked at me. And every time her phone buzzed, she stiffened like someone had grabbed her by the throat. I didn't say anything. I watched instead. Sometimes watching is the only tool a mother has left. That Friday evening, I came home earlier than usual. The clinic had closed early due to a power issue, and I thought, naively, that maybe the spare hours would give me a chance to reconnect with her. I opened the door softly. The house was dark. Not dark like someone forgot to switch on the lights. Dark like someone was hiding. "Elena," I called gently. No answer. I took off my shoes and walked deeper in. The air felt heavier than usual, like the house was holding something in its lungs. Then I heard it. A small sound. A breath. A whisper. Coming from the kitchen. I moved slowly, each step careful, like I was approaching something fragile or something dangerous. When I reached the doorway, I saw her. Elena was sitting on the floor, leaning against the lower cabinet. Her knees were pulled to her chest, her hair messy around her face, her eyes red. Not red from anger, red from crying. My heart cracked. "Elena," I whispered. She flinched at the sound of my voice, not like someone surprised, like someone scared. She wiped her face roughly, as if trying to erase the evidence, and stood up too quickly. Her phone fell from her lap and clattered on the tiles. She lunged for it, but I was closer. I bent down and picked it up. I didn't open it. I didn't press a button. I didn't invade her privacy. I simply held it, waiting for her to breathe, waiting for her to have enough strength to speak. But her reaction wasn't the reaction of a normal teenager who didn't want her mother snooping. She froze, completely, like a deer staring at headlights. "Elena, talk to me," I said quietly. For a moment, I thought she would. Her lips trembled, her throat moved, her eyes softened. But then she shook her head violently and grabbed the phone from my hand. "I said don't touch my things," she whispered, not angrily, but with panic. Her voice shook. Her fingers were trembling so hard she nearly dropped the phone again. "Elena, sweetheart, what's going on? You're not okay. Please just—" "I can't," she said suddenly. Her voice was thin, like stretched paper. "I can't tell you." I took a step toward her. She took a step back. That single movement broke something in me. She wasn't just hiding something. She was terrified of me knowing it. "What can't you tell me?" I asked softly. "Are you in trouble?" Silence. "Is someone hurting you?" Her breath hitched. Her eyes filled instantly. But she didn't speak. Instead, she shook her head again, too quickly, too desperately, and bolted out of the kitchen, almost knocking over the chair in her rush. Her bedroom door slammed shut so hard the floorboards shook. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the empty space where she had been. And for the first time, fear settled deep in my chest, not a mother's worry, but something sharper and colder. Something was wrong, very wrong. I cleaned the kitchen slowly, trying to calm myself. But every sound in the house felt louder, every shadow felt longer. Around midnight, I heard her crying through the wall. Not loud sobbing, silent crying, the kind you bury into your pillow so no one hears. I sat on my bed, hands clasped, wanting to go to her. But mothers know when their children want comfort and when they want distance. That night, she wanted distance. She cried herself to sleep, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining every horrible possibility. But the real answer was something I could have never predicted. The next day, she didn't come out of her room at all. She didn't eat breakfast. She didn't respond when I knocked gently. Her silence became a fog that filled the house. Around noon, I finally forced myself to check on her. I pushed her door slightly, not enough to intrude, just enough to peek. Her bed was empty. My heart jumped. Elena. I called, louder now. No answer. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Checked the backyard. Empty. Her shoes were still by the door. Her coat was still on the hanger. But she was nowhere. Panic surged through me. I called her name again, louder this time. Then I ran through the house, checking every room, every corner. Nothing. Then I noticed something on the dining table. A small folded paper. My hand shook as I picked it up. Just one sentence was written on it. Don't look for me today. My heart fell into my stomach. I called her phone. It rang twice, then went silent. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky like a silent threat. Every sound outside made me jump. Car doors, footsteps, voices. But she didn't return. At 8 p.m., when the sky was fully dark, I heard the front door creak. She walked in quietly. Too quietly. Her face was pale. Her clothes smelled faintly of cigarette smoke. She never smoked. Her hands were shaking. Elena, I whispered, rushing to her. Where were you? I was terrified. I told you not to look for me, she said without emotion. She walked past me, her movements strange, like she wasn't fully present, like she was moving through thick water. Elena, please, just tell me where you were. Nothing. She climbed the stairs slowly, as if dragging invisible chains. At the top, she turned her head slightly, just enough for me to see the tears streaming down her face. Mum, she whispered. My heart leaped. Maybe, finally, she would open up. Then she said a sentence that shook me to the core. I think I ruined everything. That was the moment I knew the truth wasn't something small or simple. It wasn't a school issue. It wasn't a friend problem. It wasn't teenage stress. It was bigger, darker, something that had its claws deep in her. Elena, I whispered, sweetheart, whatever it is, I'm here. I'll help you. Just tell me. I can't, she said again. But her voice cracked in the middle of the word. And that's when I saw it. Her left sleeve was slightly pushed up. Just a little. Enough for me to see the dark fingerprint-shaped bruise on her forearm. My blood ran cold. Elena, I whispered in horror. She yanked the sleeve down instantly. It's nothing, she said. It's not nothing, I said firmly. Mom, she whispered, please don't make me say it. And then she ran to her room again. The door didn't slam this time. It closed softly, like she didn't even have the strength to be angry. I walked back downstairs in a daze. My legs felt heavy, my chest tight, my thoughts spiraling. Someone had hurt her. Someone had grabbed her. Someone had marked her skin. And she was protecting them. Who? Why? How long had this been happening? I sat at the kitchen table for hours, replaying every moment of the last few months, connecting every small clue I had ignored. The lies, the messages, the secrecy, the bruises, the fear. By the time the clock struck midnight, I knew two things for certain. First, whatever was happening wasn't going to stop on its own. And second, I had already lost the daughter I knew, but I couldn't lose her completely. I wouldn't. So that night, I made a decision. A quiet, desperate mother's decision. I would find out the truth, no matter what it cost me, no matter what she didn't want me to know. And by the time I walked to her room to check on her again, she was asleep, curled up, small, fragile, exhausted. But on her desk was something she forgot to hide. A single printed paper, a list, a name at the top, a name I recognized, a name that made my entire world drop through the floor. That was the moment everything made sense. And that was the moment I broke. There is a moment in every mother's life when fear stops being fear and becomes something else, something sharper, something steadier. That moment came to me as I stood in my daughter's darkened room, staring at the paper she left on her desk. It trembled slightly in my hands, though I wasn't sure if it was the paper trembling or me. The name at the top was someone I knew, someone from our past, someone I never wanted near her. And yet, he was back, quietly, silently, like a shadow returning to a house it once called home. Her father, I didn't say his name out loud. The room felt too small, too fragile, as if the sound itself might make the walls collapse. I sat down on her bed. Not gently, not softly. My legs had lost their strength. He had sent her a message. No, multiple. The printed paper wasn't just one line. It was a whole thread. Half-truths, manipulations, promises dressed as apologies, all carefully designed to pull her closer. He had written things like, "I'm still your family. She kept you away from me. You deserve to know the truth. Come meet me. Don't tell her." I read every word twice, some 3 times. I had spent years believing he disappeared forever, that he left because he didn't care, that he wasn't cruel, just absent. But these messages told a different story. He hadn't been absent. He had been waiting. For her. For the right moment. For the right weakness. And when her loneliness grew deep enough, he reached into it like a fisherman pulling on a thin line. My hands balled into fists without me realizing it. Suddenly everything made sense. The secrecy, the tears, the bruises, the fear. She hadn't been avoiding me. She had been protecting him. Always believing him. I looked at the paper again, at the dates. He had been talking to her for months. Months. And she told me nothing. A dull ache spread through my chest. Not anger, not betrayal, but something heavier. A mother's failure. Where was I when she started slipping away? Where was I when she thought she needed him more than me? Where was I when he whispered poison into her ears? I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying to keep from making a sound. Crying felt useless. Breathing felt painful. But after a long moment, something inside me shifted. Not broken, changed. I stood up, walked into the hallway, and closed her door very softly, as if sealing the old life behind it. Then I went into the kitchen and sat down. I didn't cry anymore. I planned. Not revenge. Not yet. Just truth. I made a list, an old habit from my days at the clinic. Step 1, find out where he is. Step 2, understand what he wants. Step 3, bring my daughter back before he takes more. Simple, clear, cold. But of course, nothing about this was simple. He wasn't the kind of man who leaves easy footprints. He had a way of slipping between lies and half-truths like someone who has spent his life avoiding responsibility. I knew he had no job, no stable address, no real friends. He had lived his entire life using people as stepping stones. And now he was using Elena. The first thing I needed was information. I went through my old drawers, searching for anything with his details, an ID copy, an old address, an old number. Most of it was outdated. But one thing wasn't. His mother's address. His mother was harsh, bitter, and unkind. But she was honest. If he was in town, she would know. The next day, while Elena slept, I slipped out of the house and drove to the old neighborhood. It felt like traveling back in time, not to happy memories, but to ones I had buried so deep I hoped they'd stay dead. When his mother opened the door, her jaw tightened instantly. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know," I answered calmly, "but I need to ask something." She narrowed her eyes, studying me. "It's about Elena." Her face softened just slightly. She loved Elena, in her own cold way. "He's been contacting her," I said. She inhaled sharply, then nodded, slowly, like she had expected this. "He came back 3 months ago," she said. "He said he wanted to fix things." Fix? I almost laughed. He had never fixed anything in his life, but I kept my face calm. "Where is he staying?" She hesitated. For a long time. Her eyes flickered, as if trying to decide whether helping me meant betraying him. Then she sighed. "He's renting a room downtown, above the liquor store." I thanked her quietly and left. I drove home slowly, gripping the wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache. Every mile felt like a knot tightening in my stomach. He was back, alive, nearby, and pulling my daughter away from me one lie at a time. When I reached home, Elena was awake, sitting at the kitchen table. Her eyes were tired, her posture small. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm sorry about yesterday." I nodded, not angrily, Not coldly, just carefully. It's okay. She looked relieved. But I wasn't relieved. I was watching her. Watching every flinch, every breath, every half-formed sentence. She looked like someone carrying a secret that weighed more than her own bones. Mom, she said again, if one day I tell you something hard, will you promise not to hate me? My heart twisted. Elena, I said gently, there's nothing you could tell me that would make me hate you. Her eyes filled instantly. She looked away. I don't know, she whispered. Sometimes I think I messed everything up. I reached for her hand. She pulled it back. Not out of anger, out of shame. That broke me more than anything. It was then I knew she wasn't choosing him over me out of spite. She was choosing him because she felt trapped. Trapped by promises he couldn't keep. Trapped by guilt he planted in her. Trapped by a story where he made me look like the villain. I needed to act, but not loudly, not with confrontation, not with shouting or threats. Those things only pushed children further away. I needed to be quiet, steady, unshakable. That night, she fell asleep early. Her face looked younger when she slept, too young to be carrying the weight of a grown man's manipulations. I watched her for a long moment, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. I'll fix this, I whispered, more to myself than to her. I'll fix this before he breaks you. Then I walked downstairs and sat in the living room. My heart wasn't racing anymore. My hands weren't shaking. Everything inside me had gone still. The stillness of a mother who has finally realized the only way to save a child is to step into the fire herself. I took out a notebook and wrote 4 words. I need to see him. Not to argue. Not to fight. Not to beg. To understand. And to take back the ground he had stolen between me and my daughter. Because he had spent months weaving a web. Now it was my turn to break it. Quietly. Carefully. Completely. Before he destroyed her. Before she destroyed herself. Before the day she would lift her hand and hit me. The path toward that moment had already started. I could see it clearly now. But the story wasn't done. The war hadn't even begun. What mattered next was not pain. Not fear. Not guilt. What mattered was strategy. A mother's strategy. And I was finally ready to use it. I didn't tell Elena where I was going. I didn't leave a note. I didn't hesitate. I walked out of the house the next morning with one goal. End this. The air outside felt heavier than usual. Colder. Sharper. I drove to the liquor store. Parked outside. Stayed up at the narrow staircase leading to the room above it. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt nothing. Just purpose. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step a quiet promise to myself. When I reached the door, I didn't knock. I pushed it open. It wasn't locked. He was there, sitting on a dirty couch, hunched over, scrolling through his phone like someone who had all the time in the world. He looked older, a little thinner, eyes darker, but still the same man. He looked up when the door opened. The smile faded instantly. You. His voice held surprise and annoyance. I stepped inside, closed the door quietly behind me. I know you've been talking to Elena, I said. No emotion, no trembling, just truth. He leaned back, smirk returning. Kids reach out when they want answers. She didn't reach out, I said. You pulled her in. He shrugged. She's old enough to choose who she talks to. You manipulated her. That's a big word. Maybe she just needed something you weren't giving her. Those words burned, but I didn't blink. I moved closer. He watched me like someone studying a piece on a chessboard. What do you want with her? I asked. He laughed. A low, ugly sound. She's my daughter too. You walked out on her. Yeah, he said, stretching his legs. And look at that. She still came back to me. I didn't react. He wanted me to. So, he continued, tell me, what brings you here? You come to scream, beg, threaten. I came to end it, I said. His eyebrows lifted. End what? You using her. He stared at me, then leaned forward slowly, voice dropping. You don't get it. You never did. He pointed his finger at me. She's angry at you, not me. She was lonely, I corrected. And you found an opening. He smirked again. Call it what you want. She listens to me. No, I said calmly. She obeys you because she's scared. That, finally, made him blink. Scared? He laughed again. You think I hurt her? I didn't answer. His jaw clenched. He leaned forward. You always thought you were the good one, he said. You always made yourself the victim. I'm not the one who bruised her arm. He froze, just for a second, barely noticeable, but enough. I took another step toward him. What did you tell her? I asked. What did you make her believe? He didn't speak, so I kept going. You told her I kept her from you. Another step. You told her you missed her. Another. You told her she needed to prove something to you. One more. He finally stood up. Get out, he said. No, I answered softly. I'm not leaving until I know exactly what you've done to her. He moved toward me, aggressive, shoulders tense. I lifted my chin, unmoving. Hit me, I said. Go ahead. It'll make everything easier. His jaw tightened. His breathing changed. But he didn't touch me. Cowards never strike someone who is ready for the blow. I spoke again. Quiet. Cold. What did you tell her to do? Nothing. He tried to look away. That was my answer. You told her to come to you, I said. You told her to keep secrets. You told her to lie to me. You told her she owed you. His silence confirmed every word. And then, a voice behind me. Mom. My heart stopped. I turned around. Elena stood in the doorway, her eyes wide, her face pale, her whole body trembling. How did you? I started. She whispered, I followed you. Her father crossed his arms, smirking again. See, she came to me. Elena, I said gently, you don't have to speak to him. She shook her head, tears spilling instantly. I didn't want you to find out like this, she whispered. I thought I could fix it on my own. Her father laughed under his breath. Fix what? I asked softly. Elena's throat moved. She looked between us, her mother, and the man who had pulled her into darkness. I thought he would change, she said. I thought, if I gave him a chance, he would love me. My chest shattered. Her father scoffed. Don't make this dramatic. I told you I needed help. I turned slowly. Help with what, exactly? He rolled his eyes. Money. I inhaled sharply. Elena flinched. He told me, she whispered, voice breaking. He told me you took everything from him. Her lips trembled. He said he needed me to make things right. My blood ran cold. Her father, arms crossed, voice hard, said she's old enough to contribute. My hands curled into fists. You made her feel responsible for your life, I said. You made her think she owed you something. You made her hurt herself trying to prove she mattered. He stepped closer aggressively. I told her the truth. No, I said firmly. You told her your version. Elena cried harder. I tried. Mom, I tried so hard. I thought he wanted me. And then, her father said the one sentence that cracked everything open. I told you to keep her in line, he snapped at Elena. She shouldn't be talking back. Elena froze. Her tears stopped mid-fall. My breath caught. He continued, you were supposed to show her you weren't a child anymore. You're almost an adult. Act like one. My heart turned to stone. Show me. I whispered. Is that what he told you? Elena looked at me and shattered. That night, she whispered, voice barely audible, when I hit you. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to, she cried. He told me I had to stand up to you. He told me you controlled me. He said you were the reason he couldn't see me. He said if I didn't show you he was right, you'd never listen. I closed my eyes. Her father muttered, you were too soft on her for too long. Something inside me snapped. Slowly, I turned to him. You made my daughter hurt me, I said quietly. You used her pain to get to me. You made her your weapon. He smiled, but his eyes flickered with something else. Fear. And then Elena said the final truth. He said, if I didn't prove I wasn't weak, he'd leave again. The room went silent. Completely. Then I stepped forward, my voice steady. You won't ever see her again. He laughed. You think you can stop me? I already have. I stepped aside so Elena could see me clearly. Elena, I whispered, come here. Just 2 words. She hesitated for a moment, one last tug from the man who manipulated her. Then she broke, ran to me, collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard it shook her whole body. Her father reached out as if to grab her. I didn't move. Elena did. She stepped back, stood tall, looked him in the eyes, and said the word she needed to say more than anything. You don't get to hurt me anymore. His face twisted. You're making a mistake, he growled. No, she said quietly. I'm ending one. I walked her out of the room, down the stairs, out of the building, into the daylight. She held my hand so tight it hurt. I didn't mind. Some pain means healing. When we reached the car, she whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know. I thought he loved me. I touched her cheek gently. He never did, I said. But I do. That was the moment she broke down again. Not in fear, not in guilt, but in release. And for the first time in months, I felt her grip tighten with trust. The web was broken. And now, we had to face the aftermath. The drive home was quiet. Not the heavy kind of quiet we had lived in for months. Not the sharp, suffocating silence that used to fill every room between us, but a soft one. Fragile. Like the house after a storm, when the wind finally stops screaming but the branches are still trembling in the yard. Elena sat beside me, staring out the window with swollen eyes. Her breathing was shallow. Her fingers twisted the fabric of her sleeve over and over, as if she was afraid that letting go might make reality dissolve. I didn't rush her. I didn't question her. I didn't fill the silence with words she wasn't ready to hear. I just drove, letting the road carry us forward, inch by inch, away from the man who had wrapped her in a story that wasn't hers. When we reached home, she didn't move at first. She just sat there in the car, hands still gripping her sleeves, eyes unfocused. Elena, I said softly, we're home. Home. The word felt unfamiliar, even to me. She nodded slowly, then climbed out of the car with a stiffness that made her look smaller than she was. Inside, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed. The furniture was the same, the lights the same, the smell the same, but because we had changed. She walked to the living room and sat on the couch. I sat beside her, leaving just a little space. Not distance. Respect. She curled her knees up, like she used to do when she was young. She didn't look at me at first. Her gaze stayed on her hands, on the small tremble she couldn't hide. Mom, she whispered finally. HM. I didn't want to hurt you. Her voice cracked on the last word. I placed my hand gently over hers. I know. She stared at our hands, as if the warmth itself was unfamiliar. I don't know why I listened to him, she said, her voice soft and raw. I don't know why it felt important. I took a slow breath. You were looking for something, I said. Something you thought he could give you. She looked up, tears filling her eyes again. What was I looking for? Belonging, I answered quietly. Love, approval, a part of your story you never understood. She swallowed hard. And you think he could have given me that? No, I said firmly, but he made you believe he could. Her lips trembled. I feel stupid. You're not, I said immediately. You were manipulated. That's not stupidity. That's vulnerability. And vulnerability is human. She looked away quickly, covering her face. I didn't think I'd fall for it. I didn't think I needed him. You didn't, I said. He needed you. She flinched. That's worse. I didn't argue. Pain has to speak before it can soften. After a long moment, she leaned sideways until her shoulder touched mine. A small touch. A quiet one. but it felt like the first sign of something mending. I'm scared, she whispered. Of him? No, of me. My breath caught. I'm scared I'll do something like that again, she said. I'm scared I'll believe someone like that again. She covered her face, shaking. I'm scared I'll hurt you again. I wrapped my arm around her, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Elena, I whispered, people don't heal in straight lines. They heal in circles. They fall. They rise. They break. They mend. I broke something in us, she whispered. In you. I rested my cheek gently on her head. And now you're mending it. She cried softly, not the silent, swallowed cries from before, but open ones. The kind that free the chest instead of tightening it. When her breathing finally slowed, she said, I thought he loved me. I nodded slowly. I know. And I thought, maybe you didn't. Those words hit deeper than any slap ever could. I didn't let her pull away. Elena, I whispered, I have loved you every single day of your life, even the days you couldn't feel it. She cried again at that, quiet, exhausted tears that ran down my sleeve. After a long while, she said, I want to fix this. I want to fix us. And we will, I said. But slowly, gently, together. She nodded. We sat there for a long time, letting the silence soften instead of harden. Later that evening, she went to her room, not to hide, not to shut me out, but simply to rest. Before she closed the door, she turned to me and whispered, Mom, can you stay close by? Always, I said. I sat on the hallway floor, leaning against her door, listening to her breathing slow into sleep. Not because she needed guarding, but because healing sometimes feels like learning to breathe again. And I wanted her to know she wasn't breathing alone. Over the next few days, the house moved differently. Slower, quieter. She stayed close to me. Sometimes she talked. Sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she just sat in the same room, saying nothing but allowing the silence to be shared. Trust doesn't rebuild in dramatic scenes. It rebuilds like that, in small, gentle moments. One morning, she came into the kitchen while I was making tea. She hesitated, then whispered, Can I help? I nodded, giving her the spoon. Her hand shook when she stirred the pot. But she stayed. That was enough. Later, she asked if she could sit with me while I folded laundry. A small thing, but smaller things had become bridges between us. One night, she knocked on my door. Mom, can I sleep in your room tonight? I opened my arms. She curled up beside me, like she used to when thunderstorms scared her as a child. I held her, listening to her breathe, feeling how small she still was in the world, how young, how breakable, and how strong she was for coming back. Because returning isn't weakness, it's courage. A week passed before she finally said the words she'd been holding inside. We were sitting on the porch, watching the late afternoon sunlight stretch across the street. Mom, she whispered, I'm scared he'll come back. I placed my hand gently on her back. He won't. You can't know that. I can. She looked at me, eyes wide. I looked back, steady. He won't come back because I ended it. How? I smiled faintly, because I told him something he finally believed. What? That if he came near you again, I wouldn't stay quiet this time. Her breath caught. Mom, you could get hurt. I'm not afraid of him. She swallowed. I am. You don't need to be, I said softly, because you're not alone anymore. For the first time, she leaned her head on my shoulder without crying. Just resting. Just trusting. Just healing. The bruise on her arm faded slowly. The guilt took longer. The fear even longer than that. But every day, she came back to me a little more. One morning, she walked into the kitchen with a small smile. Real, soft, genuine. Mom. Yes. Can we start over? I turned to her fully. We never ended, I said. We just got lost. She nodded, then stepped forward and hugged me. Not a hesitant hug. Not a fragile one. A full, warm, honest one. It was the moment I realized we were finding our way back. Not perfectly, not quickly, but together. And that was enough. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't see in the middle of everything. Pain doesn't always show up as shouting or fighting. Sometimes, pain arrives quietly, inside small lies, tired eyes, late nights, and too long silences. And sometimes, the people you love the most break you without meaning to, simply because someone else convinced them that breaking you gives them power. But healing never comes in one dramatic moment. It comes through small choices, small steps, small truths whispered in the dark. But we started choosing each other again. Slowly, honestly, gently. Every time she came to me with her fears, I listened. Every time she apologized, I reminded her she was loved. Every time she took responsibility for her part in things, I took responsibility for mine. Because relationships, especially between a mother and daughter, aren't one-sided stories. They are shared spaces, shared shadows, shared light. And I learned something important. Sometimes the person you raised isn't the same person you're helping heal, but both of them still need you. I also learned that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes silence is what keeps wounds open longer. The day she hit me will always be a hard memory, but it's no longer the ending of something. It's the turning point, the place where everything broke, so something better could be rebuilt. And despite everything, despite the hurt and the fear and the distance, I'm grateful for one thing. She came back to me, not because I forced her, not because I begged her, but because when the truth finally cleared the fog around her, she realized where home really was. Not the house, me, us, our history, our bond. And now, when she sits across from me at breakfast, or leans her head on my shoulder during a movie, or hugs me before bed, I remind myself quietly, we made it through. Together. Maybe that's the real moral here. Not that love fixes everything. Not that forgiveness is easy. Not even that pain has a purpose. But this, you never truly lose someone who is willing to walk back toward you. No matter how far they strayed. No matter who pulled them away. No matter what lies they believed along the way. They are not lost forever if they choose to be found. And the day Elena chose to come back, the day she looked at me with shaking eyes and asked me to stay close, was the day I realized something I wish every mother knew. Even when they break your heart, they still love you. They just need help finding their way through the dark. And I'll walk every path with her, no matter how broken, for as long as she needs me. Because that's what mothers do. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm glad you were here with me through every painful moment and every small victory. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. And if you take anything away from this, let it be this one simple truth. Sometimes love doesn't look like holding on. Sometimes it looks like showing someone the way back.